Good afternoon, team. Happy lunchtime on Wednesday, the 18th of November for our last official training webinar of the year. We're going to do something fun next month that I hope will be something that you guys will enjoy as well, but I'll tell you about that at the end. So yeah, welcome. I'm going to turn our camera just a little bit for how we're sitting today, but I'm Jen Myers. This is Craig Yarnsley, and here we are again.
Here we are again at the end of what I think everyone will be happy to be a year that's over.
Yes, in one way or another. Yes, we'd be happy it's over. We don't have our lovely Jonna with us today to do some introductions. So really quickly, just going to share with you your controls and the things that are on your webinar screen today. So we do this in a webinar format. I can't see you, but you can see us, and you'll see our screen slides in just a minute. But what we try to do in these sessions is keep them within the hour. Today should actually be just a little bit shorter because of what we're covering. But we do try to give you things that you can take away. So make sure that you've got a pen and paper with you to take notes. We'll give you ways to reach out and email us if you've got any questions afterward on this. And this session is being recorded and posted up to our new website webinar page, which is really exciting.
Fantastic.
So if you've missed any of these webinars this year, you are getting links in the emails that we send you to how to access the webinar page on our website, where you can click through and choose which webinar you want to watch any time of day or night that you have time to sit down and digest it. So if you've missed anything at all this year, please head out to that page on the generate.solutions website. There is a page that says webinars, and you'll be able to watch whichever one you want to watch. So here we go. Let me share the screen so we can get rocking into today's topic. Brilliant. And let me cast this up as a slideshow. I didn't get this started before I logged in with you guys today, so sorry. Here we go. All right. So today's topic, which I don't think that we did this at the end of last year, actually. I'm not sure that we did one, but this is called Conduct a Powerful Year-End Review, even in a year that didn't go to plan for anyone, ourselves included.
And look, we're talking about it now, being November, because we're talking about a calendar year, but this can also be preempting when your year end being March, which is most businesses that you just target doing what we're going to talk about now when you get back in January, February.
Absolutely. So you can do it any time of the year. You can actually do this in the middle of your year if you chose to do it. So, you know, a half-yearly review, if you choose to do something like that, could be a great method of kind of maybe catching things early before they get too far gone in the year, and you can fix those, and identifying some fresh opportunities that might arise. So really any time is good to do this. We chose now because it's the end of our financial year, but yeah, this is us for today. So who are we? We are Generate Business and Life Solutions. We specialize in working with the dental, medical, professional services space all around New Zealand. So, Craig, want to speak a little bit to who you are?
No, I think we'll run through. I mean, everyone knows I am by now, and if they don't, they can read it.
If they don't, they can read it, I guess. But we don't have everybody on every session, so there might be new people tuning in today. So, yes. So, yeah, Craig Yarnsley, Jennifer Myers, we've done heaps of different things in our collective lifetimes, and now we find ourselves here, which is serving our clients from soup to nuts, which is strategy, helping them identify where it is they want to go, what they want their businesses and their practices to look like. We help them through putting strategy into practice, because I've come across so many business owners who I'll sit down with, Craig, and I know this has happened to you too, where I'll ask them, so what's your strategy? What's your plan for next year? What do you want to do? And what do they usually say?
A little bit of what we've done.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, so what have you done? Well, I don't really know. We've got to where we are. So, you know, unless you're really focused on doing something and moving and changing, then you don't. Yeah.
So it's helping people to identify and get clear on what they want from their businesses and put a plan in place to help them get there. Otherwise, you just kind of toddle on from year to year, don't you? Yeah.
And look, looking across my client base, I can be 100% certain those who focus on their business, do these sort of reviews, plan and work with outside professionals to fill in the gaps, they are more successful than those who just go day to day.
Yes, and get stuck in routine and just not really stepping outside to access help or to do something different. We help them focus on how to grow, and growth doesn't have to mean more clients, right? Growth can look different for every single practice. It could be professional and personal growth of your team, right? What does growth look like for you? And we'll help you figure out what that looks like and provide you with resources and perhaps connections to help you do that. And then exit. When you're ready to step away from the practice, you've had enough, you've done your dash, what is next? What is next? So we help you get clear on that as well. We are moving into today's agenda. So what we're focusing on today is kind of looking back at where we've gone this year with these webinars and kind of what we've shared with you. So we'll start a little bit with that, with a bit of a review on those topics. We'll look at how you can uncover opportunities for 2021 because they're there. You just need to look for them. How can we reconnect with our teams? And how can we reconnect our teams? We'll dive into what I mean by that in a minute. And the best way to refresh over the holidays. The holidays are coming up and they can either go by so fast that you don't take advantage of them and don't really recover, and you get to the end of them and go, wow, I need another holiday. Or you can get to the end of the holidays refreshed and ready to dive into the next year. We'll talk about what the secret sauce of success is. That's a lot of alliteration. And next month's topic, webinar topic, and the purpose of that, why we're doing what we're doing in December. So where have we been this year with all of you? We basically kicked off the year with a session entitled, Where Are You Headed in 2020? Now, we discussed the importance of getting a really clear picture of where you are and where you want to be. Then we looked in, I think it was March, about setting your goals and identifying how to actually bring your goals to fruition by putting a bit of a plan behind them. And we've got a little tool that we can use called the 120-day planner. It's up to you how you choose to implement a plan to get your goals into practice. But unless you put some timelines and some specific activities behind a goal, they just kind of fall into the void, right? So after that came COVID. And that's why the slide is there from that month that says, this too shall pass. And yeah, we pivoted, right? We pivoted and put together a webinar during that time that wasn't along the topic lines, but it was called Finding Opportunity in Adversity, which was actually really well received and incredibly well attended because you were all home, you weren't in your offices. So that was quite a bit of fun actually to have so many people involved, because usually there's, you know, it's a little bit small over these lunch times when a few of you can grab time to tune in live. But thanks to the recordings on the webpage, now you can tune in whenever it's convenient for you. So we'll continue to do these at the same time, but yeah, now it's going to be much more convenient. But yeah, has this passed?
No.
No. What do we still need to be thinking about moving forward with this COVID thing?
Well, I guess we just got to still be thinking flexibility at the end of the day. And I think that's one thing that's everyone in business has learned, is that things don't go to plan. And we all knew that beforehand, but this was such a whack around the head to remind us that things don't go to plan. And if you don't have a plan, it's worse.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bit like coming to a roundabout and you don't know where to go. But you know, whereas when you get to the roundabout and something's blocking the way you want to go, you still know where you want to go, so you get to another way.
Yes.
Whereas COVID sort of whacked so many people around the head that it's just been one of those years that has been extraordinary. But hopefully what will happen, it will give a springboard for the extraordinary to come out of it.
There you go. So yes, still happening, still needing to be flexible and really kind of try to maintain the mojo. We've been here, we've done that. We can go in and out of what we need to do because we were all able to pivot this year. Now we know what to do. So it's created some learned experience instead of just, oh my gosh, what is this going to look like? We know what we need to do. We just need to execute. And
interestingly, what we're seeing is that yes, there are some industries that are being really clipped because of COVID. We're not one of them. You're not one of them. But what we are seeing is because travel's been reduced, there's actually a lot of spending happening on people's personal lives because they're not spending the money on travel. There's huge numbers when you go and dig into it in terms of what people spend on travel. I had no idea that sort of number was being spent. But realistically, that then gives people the impetus to spend elsewhere.
Yes.
And maybe that's something you guys need to be looking for. Is there something that you can put out there that can grab some of those spare dollars that are floating around?
Absolutely. And I saw, and because we're in part of an accounting firm, something came through the other day that you said, oh, Jen, this will be a great addition to the upcoming newsletter for your clients. What was that? So these guys know.
Yeah, so just when COVID came through and the idea we're looking at measures, there's a $5,000 spend on what usually is a capital asset, so you don't get a full deduction for it. And you have until the 16th of March next year. If there's something that you're looking for that you're holding off to buy, go and buy it now, because you'll get a full 100% tax deduction for it.
Up to $5,000.
Up to $5,000. So that's so it's not a, don't go and buy 5 assets of $5,000, because that falls into a different category. I'm talking about individual assets.
Cool. So if you need a new piece of equipment or something for your practice, you may want to consider doing that now rather than later.
For example, a laptop.
There you go.
If your laptop's nearly had it and you're thinking and debating about whether to replace it, you've got sort of a 4-month window where you get 100% deduction for it.
Nice. Thanks for that. So it's good information to have. We figured we'd pass that along today. So here we move into May, and we're still pivoting. We ran a section about personal resilience and how to recharge our batteries in the little moments we can grab throughout the day, our busy days. So once again, that was really well attended because you were still home. Now, back to the real world, when everybody kind of went back to their practices and back to work. And we dove into the topic of growth and how really vitally important it is for every one of your practices as we moved out of that hard lockdown phase of the pandemic to make sure that you're focusing on growth and taking advantage of opportunities that were and still are in your marketplace. In July, we did a fantastic overview of how to use the concepts behind the DISC model of behavioral profiling, right? Behavioral styles, to improve your communication with each other and with your patients. So several of you since that point have taken up the offer that we've been making the past several months about completing your own DISC profile as a leader within your practice. And you've had great things to say about what you learned. And we've got 2 practices who are booked in to run DISC workshops for their teams early next year as a great kickoff to 2021. Start the year off understanding each other better and learning how to better communicate. Now, in August, we talked about how to run more engaging and effective meetings with your team so that you don't have people falling asleep in the middle, right? And that they're actually effective. You're doing what you intend to do in that meeting, and you're clear on what the purpose of the meeting is.
That was me on the left.
Was that you?
That was me on the left, because that was when I was crook.
Here we go. Oh, yeah, this guy.
I missed the August one. Yeah.
Yes, you were gone for August and September. Well, glad you're back and feeling better. So in September, we shared with you, speaking of teams, we shared with you the keys to having a world-class team by encouraging people to focus on strengths, right? Work to their strengths, take ownership and accountability of their bit, because the weakest link in any team kind of determines how the team goes. All right, and finally, last month, we had a bit of a discussion and gave you heaps of strategies that you can use to get out of overwhelm. We had the woman pulling her hair out and the calm one over here, which, as Craig pointed out last month, she actually might not be as calm under the surface, right, as she's appearing on the surface. But talked about how to get out and stay out of overwhelm. And I've had discussions with a couple of you one-to-one since last month, and have gotten some great feedback from the strategies that we shared. So here's just a little bit of feedback from one of your own. And I had challenged this particular practice manager to set some boundaries and to delegate a bit more. So that's been taken up really well. So well done, you know who you are. All right.
I like the but thank you at the end.
I know, but thank you. I just copied and pasted it as it was, didn't change the wording. So what we've come through this year, considering what we've come through this year, I'm guessing that not many of you are feeling like this exhilarated woman who's crossing the finish line in this race. You might be really excited and joyful that this incredibly long year is finally coming to a conclusion, but I'm guessing you're feeling more like this. You're crashing, you're sucking down the water, you're crawling over the finish line, right? So I think I'm somewhere in the middle, because the last few months for me have been unbelievably busy and productive, which is great. But I'm not sure about you guys. And, how are you feeling like this, Craig, or are you somewhere in the middle?
Everyone's going to be different.
Yes.
Is what I can say, because we had COVID March, April, start of May, and as a business owner, you had a heap of stuff going on through your mind, at least in terms of how you're going to manage. You got people out there, do they get paid, don't they get paid, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Then you get behind in your work, and then I was crook in August, September, which didn't help. So for me, I just can't wait to the end of the year to then put my feet up without feeling crook and just having some time out, some zone me time.
Yep.
Because I think a business owner and I think a good practice manager thinks like a business owner. So they're sort of thinking 24/7. And the trick, as we'll get through a little bit later on, we'll talk about, is how to turn yourself off for a while and recharge.
Yeah.
It's very hard to recharge when you're going.
It is. And I think when you have that sense of, and we want teams, we're committed as owners, as practice managers, as leaders in businesses and practices, we're committed to that effort. And it is a 24/7 thing that's always in the back of your brain, and you work at weird hours and all this fun stuff that we all know we do. And we want teams who are also taking enough ownership that they're thinking about work outside of work, but in a good way, I guess. We don't want them to become burned out, but yeah, how do you set the example over the holidays so that your team members go, yeah, they can chill out and turn off, so can I. Yeah. All right. So today's going to be a relatively quick session around how you can use these last few weeks of the year to reassess, set an intention for next year, right? Instead of just blindly stumbling into the year when you come back from the break. And then go away and recharge your batteries a little bit. So those are really just the 3 goals that we have for you today. So one of the key ways, I don't know how that happened. I went backwards by accident. One of the key ways that we can take some good learning away from this year is by asking ourselves 3 questions. Now, you have seen these 3 questions in a previous session this year, but in a slightly different context. So question number 1 is, what did go well? Question number 2, if you're taking notes, is what didn't go well? And question number 3 is, what can we do differently next year to get a better result? So let's quickly look at how we can improve our thinking by asking ourselves these questions. Because remember, we talked about the importance of thinking as a leader. Do you set aside time to think critically about your role, your practice, how you can do things better, right? Thinking is important. So it is now reflection time. So if you've got a pen and paper, just scribble down some things as we're going through this, these questions. And the first one is, what went well this year? And I think the really important add-on to that is, which is why it's in big letters, what did we as a team, or what did myself, as a PM, do to contribute to that success? So what part did we play in the success for the year? And some questions that I've put down that can kind of help you think around those lines is, what did I and my team focus on that was under our control? Because I think a lot of people got paralyzed in the middle of the year, focusing on stuff that was kind of out of their control. And didn't, move, right? Crawled under the desk and got into the fetal position and just kind of said, make it go away. What did you take proactive action on? Did you change a system? Did you do things differently? How did you pivot? And that was the buzzword of the year, right? I'm a bit sick of it, but it was out there everywhere. How did you pivot and take proactive action? In what instances were your attitudes spot on? Because I think as a leader, you set the tone, right? Everybody's watching you. So your attitude needed to remain, calm, certain and reassuring and proactive. Where are we going? What's the plan? You needed to provide your people with a plan. So how did you maintain that attitude? What did you do? Was it successful? How specifically did you as a leader or a practice manager provide that calm, certainty, and positive direction to your team? Did you make yourself more accessible? Did you communicate more? What did you do that went well? And how did you maintain those things, calm, certainty, positive direction, for your patients? because they needed that just as much as you did, because the process changed and how they interacted with your team and your practice changed. So it's all a bit unsettling. So how did you act, react, proact, right, this year in a way that contributed to success? So if I'd ask you this question really quickly, Craig, to give them time to continue thinking about this a little bit before we move to the next question, what would you say that your business did well this year?
I think we did well in remaining connected. You know, even though we were working from home, I made it a priority that we connected initially twice a day, because we're used to working in an environment where you can just stand at someone's door and have a chat, either on a social or ask a question or deliver information. So when the very first hit of moving into working from home, and we were looking at working 8-hour days, it was like at least twice a day we will connect. And it's not necessarily connect about work, but just connect because we're on our own. And then after that first week, when everything sort of seemed settled down, we then had a discussion about, well, you're stuck at home with your family, and that's in a positive sense.
Yes.
So did we actually need to be working 8 hours a day when your family's there? So we agreed as a team that we would work half days through that period, so that we still had a connection with the family. So we then dropped our work connection down to once a day. So and it was all about making sure that in a time when everyone is like, what's happening, that we remain connected. So I think that was the most positive thing that we maintained. And I guess we could say that we've maintained that we still do it, you know, and we still make an effort to make sure we touch base with each other more regularly than we did.
And even though the team has moved to trialing the 4-day week, that kind of changes. And I know many of your practices as well have a lot of part-timers. So you're not all always together on the same day. So we're kind of in the same boat with the team here, where it's, you know, you'll have a day where there's only 2 people in the office with 3 people in the office, but yeah, there's still the opportunity to connect. All right, so hopefully you've gotten a couple things that you're acknowledging, right? The first step of this whole process is to just give credit where credit is due and acknowledge what went well, the positives. The second question is to say, all right, there's always a flip side. So what actually didn't go well this year? And the other bit of that too is, what did we as a team or me as a PM bring to that situation, right? So how did we react, usually rather than being proactive in that situation that made something not go well? And only really by getting honest with ourselves can we identify where we might have dropped the ball. So if we can identify where we dropped the ball, we'll be able to sort of identify the cues that made that happen, so we can avoid doing that again in future should unexpected stuff continue to happen. And it will. It may not be COVID, but it might be something else that's going to kind of throw you off course. So here's a few questions to kind of get you thinking. At what points did your attitude as the leader slip, right? When did you not be that good example that you needed to be, and what triggered that? So if you know, you can be mindful of that trigger moving forward and keep the attitude intact. What activities or projects did you procrastinate on? And why? Did you think they weren't important anymore because COVID process was more important, but maybe the second time around with a second less strict lockdown, or depending on where you live, the super strict lockdown for version 2, did you know what you were doing and use it as an excuse to drop the ball on some other things, right? So did you intentionally set aside time to work on those projects by offloading something else? Or did you intentionally not delegate and just keep everything to yourself, right? Could you have accessed more help around you and you neglected to do that? What new process did you implement that didn't work well, and why? Right? Can it be salvaged? One of you that I was talking to recently, you know, said, hey, we've gotten in the midst of this crazy year, we've done new software. So they've got a new practice management system in place, new email system, everything. And I just got an email back from her the other day that said, oh, Jen, I'm so sorry. I totally missed your last email because did I tell you we have a new email system? So it's just teething pains in among everything else. So can the system that isn't working well be made to work well, right? And when did you not support your team in the way you should have, and why? What got in the way? So same question again for you, Craig, on the flip side. What didn't go well for the team this year?
I guess part of what COVID's done for a lot of people is just had them question what life's all about. Because a lot of people really enjoyed that sort of family time. And when you start questioning what's life about, and some of us are at an age of, like you say, middle-aged, and so that whole question comes up, what is it like? I've got so many years till I retire, what am I doing? And so
why am I here? Yeah.
So when that sort of kicks in and you start seeing people maybe not pulling their weight as much as you would like to think they would, or that they're a 9-to-5 worker, and you go, come on, just get real. If you don't make those changes, then why am I doing this? And I think when you've gone through a year when you've had that stress level, and I guess we talk about it a little bit further on about being tired. I think it's a different tired. You can be a little bit shorter in your responses, politely, than you otherwise would be. And so I guess for me, I know I've been a bit shorter at times, and I guess it's no excuse. It just is a fact. They had stress levels early in the year, then I was crook, so all of that piles up, puts you in a position where you probably don't accept things a bit like where you would before. It's just management.
Less patient, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for you, what was it? Scribble those thoughts down, because those thoughts can be golden and kind of turn into what we're talking about on the question number 3, which is, what can we do differently next year to get a different and better result, and what part am I personally going to play in that? So here's where that gets really powerful, because we're looking at opportunity and we're saying, what opportunities are open to me? What can I, because I'm really the only person I can control. It's just me. I can't control anybody else. They're all going to do what they're going to do. But what can I do differently next year to get a better result? Looking at what did and didn't go well this year are going to give you some clues as to how you can implement positive change in 2021 that'll take the team and the practice forward, even though there's going to be some lingering uncertainty and things aren't totally back to normal. It is what it is. That's the external factor that you can't control, but you can control you and how you interact and react. So how can you personally contribute to a better year? Can you improve your prioritizing skills? So many of you I've spoken to this year really resonated with that last month's topic of get out of overwhelm. You have a lot on your plate, and it's sometimes you create your own problems by not letting go of certain tasks, by not saying no and setting some boundaries. Those have been some really key strategies for a couple of you. So when you do that, and when you do that consistently, you get a better result. So how can you get better at doing that? Can you build your leadership muscle? Remember, at some point this year, we talked about your leadership lid, and Craig, you're really good at explaining that. So give them a really quick refresher on that concept.
Well, basically, I look at it like a pot. So when you're bubbling around learning, your lid's going to move, okay, bubble up. But if your lid isn't going to move, then something else is going to happen. That pot will explode. So effectively, how that lid is sitting on your leadership level is affecting everyone below you. So if there's somebody below you who's got the potential to be above you, they won't. So the only way they can do it is go sideways and go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else, and you'll lose them.
And they lose them. And technically, they're probably the ones you more want to keep. So when we first got into the Maxwell stuff, we did a bit of a project here with the teams. Let's measure each other's lids and to see where was it and were we prepared to move them. And that worked really well.
So identifying, you don't want to be the lid on your teams or your practices' success and going forward. So where does your leadership lid sit? Is it flexible? Is it movable? Are you constantly challenging yourself and growing your leadership ability so that you can effectively support those below you who have leadership ability, who you want to keep and move up? And so that you can encourage and grow the rest of your team. Because if your lid is stuck, the team will be stuck. Excuse me.
I'm going to jump in there because we keep talking about you and your team.
Yes.
In most cases, the practice managers are not the owners.
Correct.
Right? So the owners also play a part in this mix.
Absolutely.
And so if they have a leadership lid that you're fighting, then they need to be brought up to speed with all the stuff you're learning. And to be fair, to be a good medical practitioner, some of the stuff we're dealing with is not in their realm. But as a business owner, it needs to be. So I think there's times when you as a practice manager need to get outside help in, the likes of us, to sit down and say, right, we're going to have a meeting with practice manager and owner, because if you can run the business better, the owner will win.
Everybody wins.
Yep. But if you feel that you are stuck and things aren't happening because of the owner, there's a serious conversation needs to be had.
It's so many businesses, so many practices. The owner is the roadblock in different ways, right? So if one of the docs in your practice, one of the dentists in your practice is not where they need to be with regards to allowing the team to grow, growing themselves, that's someplace where you need to have an intervention because everybody wins when you're on the same page and you're moving forward. Can you connect better with each of your team members, right? Not just communicating, but actually connecting with the human being that they are. Can you give yourself an attitude adjustment? Have you fallen into some bad communication habits or some bad attitude habits? Are you not choosing the right attitude when you get up and get into the office each day and setting the example? Can you better understand what each team member needs to be successful in their role? Sometimes people aren't clear on how their role plays into the big picture. So helping remind them that they're a really important piece of the puzzle. Can you outsource something that you don't need to be doing yourself or don't need to be doing as a team, right? Work to your strengths. Are you setting aside time for your personal energy management? For instance, self-care, recharging through the day, some of those resilience strategies we touched on in May. And are you encouraging your team to do the same, right, as and when they can? So recharging the batteries through the day is really important, and it can help you be better, right? The more energy you have, the better you're going to perform, and the calmer, kinder, gentler you will come out. Kinder, gentler you. So hopefully you've scribbled some opportunities there. This is really important stuff to really make time to do this. And thank you for focusing in and watching this today so that you're investing time working on your practice instead of working in your practice.
One of the things that I'm sure I've mentioned in the past is one of my sayings that I believe wholeheartedly in is what you measure, you can manage. And part of what we're asking you to do here is to measure things. So 1 and 2 is really your measurement, and number 3 is your management of it. Okay, really important. And I think that's something people drop very quickly when things get busy. You know, they just keep doing and doing and doing and don't realize that they were able to stop and measure it. They'd probably find that a slight tweak can save hours somewhere. So what you can measure, you can manage.
Yep, and a measurement here is pretty qualitative. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it is quantitative measurement. You're taking the temperature of kind of where you are and how to fix that. So cool. The next issue that came up for a lot of folks that I've been talking with recently is many of you have told me that your teams are tired, right? And I'll have Craig speak to this in just a second because there's some things to consider around that. And in some cases, you needed to divide the team up into 2 parts, right? Either A, you've got a lot of part-timers who were never all together, or you had a big team that you had to divide into team A and team B for physical distancing rules under the lockdown measures. So now that your entire team's come back together, they've lost a little bit of that culture, the team culture, the connection, and some of the mojo that they had together. So how can you foster better connection among your team next year, or help the team regain it if it's slipped a bit? And Craig had some really good points when we were talking about the workshop around the tired issue.
Yeah, I think you've got to analyze why they're tired, because yes, COVID's an abnormal year, but it's still just a year of training. So, you know, if you're still doing a normal 8-hour day, and my question would be, why are they tired? But maybe you need to dig a bit deeper. Maybe it's like they're stressed. Maybe they're not sleeping at night. Maybe they're worried about their partner's job that may be on the line. And so therefore they're not sleeping and therefore coming into work tired. And you're in an industry too where being tired at work can be a little bit on the dangerous side. And so that then starts hitting health and safety and some pieces like that. So if that people aren't normally tired at this time of year in the business. It's something outside the business generally. And so go and have a look and see what you can find and manage it.
Yeah, because it's probably, and I think that some of the things that you mentioned earlier, like, stress, burnout, physical tiredness, it's just been a full-on year. Your practices have been overly full and busy. It's a combination of things. So when we move forward and talk about how to bring that team back together, or how to bring them together even stronger, if you didn't lose that connection and you were one of those fortunate practices that kind of didn't lose the connection, and you're still a strong team, but everybody's just, how do you re-energize for next year? And how do you do some of those things even better and connect even better? The first one, you as the leader of the team need to share a clear vision for 2021. So when the entire team knows where you're headed and what you want to accomplish, then they can get in behind the vision and help you take it forward together as a team. So communicate that clearly to them. Without a vision for the team, they're going to come back from the holiday period a bit refreshed, but not really reinvigorated for the work. And I think any of those gains from having some time off might be outweighed by quickly returning to same old, right? SSDD, same stuff, different day. So how can you cast a vision for them that isn't the same old? That's up to you as part of the leadership team. You and the owners really need to be setting aside time, if you don't, to identify what you want to be next year, how you want to look next year, what you want to accomplish. Is there a project you've been putting off that you really want to implement? And then make sure to share it with everyone, letting them know the part they're going to play in the overall success, in the overall vision for the year. I've heard that so often, again, in my discussions with you guys, have been really revealing, which is cool. Strategy sessions are not a common thing. Right, sitting down and setting intention for the year doesn't really happen.
No, and I guess that's probably driven by the owners. It's not the sort of stuff that they think about.
Exactly.
So therefore they don't push it down to the practice managers, and therefore the practice managers don't push it down to the team. Once again, it's one of those things you do need, everyone needs to know, some people like to get up at 8 o'clock, go to work, leave at 5, and that's it. They just into work, out of work. But more people than you think want to know why they're doing it. Yeah. It just gives them that little bit more impetus to get it done right and to get it done well.
Yeah, to know that they're part of something that's more than just earning a paycheck, right? And I think you as the practice manager are the pivotal key person in this process, because you're with the majority of the team through the day. You hear what goes on, you see what goes on. You can sense when there is a need for some clarity and some strategy and some planning. You need to be able to step up to the practice manager, or to the owner, and say, you know what, this is something I think we should start doing. And they're going to look at you like you have two heads. But the first time you bring that up. But I think it's really important for you to assert yourself in that instance and say, let's make time to sit down and create a plan for next year. And it's not going to be perfect because it's the first time we will have done it, but that's okay. We just need to start getting in the habit. All right, focus on upping your game with regards to personal development and training. And this is just a nice little stock photo. I don't think they're a New Zealand team, but and training on the soft skills for your team. Many of the practices, again, that I've spoken to this year have no plan for personal development for the team each year. It's not something that they allocate funding to, that they plan for, that they think of helpful topics around. And most of the training that happens is pretty much geared around the day-to-day things that happen. Training on the phone for the receptionist. There's a little bit of that's been going around. There's just bits and pieces, but there's no cohesive plan around helping your team to develop the skills that they need to be better team members, develop their leadership abilities, because I'm sure you've all got some stars on your team who could really thrive with a little extra support. Get away from just having your equipment and practice and product reps come in and train you on technicalities. That stuff's important, but it's also really important to make time to invest in your team. Because what is the most important aspect of any practice?
Depends where you come from.
Is it the equipment?
No, the equipment is, it comes down to people.
It's people.
If you look at one of your biggest costs against your income, it's going to be your wage bill.
Yeah.
And, as you look at most costs, you want to get the most effectiveness out of it. And so you just don't realise. Like I was talking to a chemist contact of mine, and they were saying that over COVID, they had to reduce the people's hours, which was fine, but they then found that they were doing the same amount of work in the same hours. So what they learned from that is, they thought they were being kind to people, paying them for another hour. They just extended the work over another hour, another hour. When in reality, they could have done it cheaper.
Yep.
Or the flip side is set up a system where you can give them some time off that's paid and get some, family time involved in the business. So there's different ways and means of doing it. And that's the sort of vision you're looking at. How do you want to be seen by your patients and your team members?
Cool. You want to be seen as the employer of choice for your ideal team members, right? And the way that you do that is by developing your people, because without engaged, productive people, you cannot help your patients. You won't be around long to help your community, right? The people are the most important thing in your practice. So helping them to communicate better, learn how to communicate, handle hard conversations, properly listen, prioritize, take responsibility, become better humans, right? Who then contribute to a healthier practice and better service delivery for your patients. Those practices who invest in their people are in the minority, sadly, but they're the standouts. They're the practices of choice when they need to hire. People want to work with them because they know they're going to grow and be supported. And this all flows to the docs and dentists as well, right? You all know your area of specialty. You've been highly trained to do specifically what you do, but do you know how to be a great leader of your people? When you signed up to open a practice, you didn't sign up to just practice what you know every minute of every day. You signed up to lead a team, however large or small. So how are your leadership skills? If you don't have a plan in place for personal development for yourself and your team next year, ask us how to do that. You can take baby steps. It doesn't have to be a massive leap. Just do something, right? Communicate well and often. That's the next thing you can do to bring your team together or strengthen the connection, is to communicate regularly, and not just about what needs to happen each day. I recently spoke to a practice manager who started focusing on bringing in a little tip about mindfulness into their morning meetings. That's brilliant. So use opportunities to get your team together and share what's gone well that day, the successes they've had, the great things that have happened. So invest just a couple of minutes to share successes, and that can help connect people. Take every opportunity to remind people how important they are and how much you appreciate their efforts. You set the tone and set the example. So when you begin being more grateful, hopefully, and it follows that your team will follow suit with each other. And additionally, the free flow of communication has to go from top to bottom and bottom to top. If your team are not comfortable coming to you with issues that they need to bring up, then there's something wrong there, right? So it's ensuring that there is the trust within the team and the connection within the team to be able to share information both directions. If everyone's scared of the doc, that's a problem. So how do we sort that out, right? Without information flowing freely, your practice is in jeopardy of having teams that kind of have an us and them mentality, right? Those divisions that crop up that can be really difficult to get through and get over. So remember why you're there. Every person is there to serve your community, not push a personal agenda, not exert authority over someone else because of the role they're in. You're there to work collaboratively to achieve a great response for your patients and a good service for your patients. So that's it. If your communication doesn't help you get to that end goal, then that's an opportunity to work on for next year.
And just remember, communication is the response you get. Another little short thing to note down. So an example of that was just driving home last night. I said to my daughter, can you ring my brother? And so she heard, can you ring my brother? So she rang my son, which was her brother.
Oh, her brother.
And I said, no, I want you to ring Uncle Stu. So communication at the front end would have been better to, can you ring Uncle Stu? So if you have a communication issue, it's two-way. You know, I knew what I said, she knew what she heard, we got a different response.
Yep.
So don't always blame the listener.
Yep.
It's not always the listener's fault. Just re-look at the communication that went wrong and work out where it went wrong and just look at improving all the time.
Cool. So the last thing we want to talk about today, and we're doing good on time, is how do we use the holidays to truly refresh? Now, I am not going to be telling you anything that you don't already know here, but sometimes reminders are helpful. So we're going to quickly go through a few things that can really help you maximize your time off. And I don't know if you're going to get a few days, a week, whatever. I mean, I realize that the practice needs to continue running and you need to help people. So maximize the time that you do have, right? Because it's precious. So get out into green spaces. There's been studies done that indicate that being in, or just viewing pictures of, which I find really interesting, a green space has a positive calming effect on our bodies. So being in nature, being someplace specifically green is really helpful for you. The next one is activity. We all know this, right? You guys are in medical practice. You're probably telling your patients to get out and get 30 minutes of moderate exercise a day. It's just as good for you as it is for them. So 30 minutes a day of moderate activity doesn't have to be running a marathon, right? Just take a stroll through the forest. You know, walking in a green space compounds the benefits, right? Or at least one would think. The third one is get enough sleep. Be sure to get enough sleep, whether you're fitting it all in at night or whether you're doing a bit at night and doing some naps during the day, right? Just get enough sleep, because when we don't sleep, our brains and our bodies don't get a chance to regenerate and make those fresh cells and those fresh neural synapses that we need to be clear and focused. And healthy adults should be getting between 7 and 9 hours a night. So if you're getting less than that, actually, if you're getting less than 6, you're actually being detrimental to your body. So make time for play. Why should the kids have all the fun in the holidays?
And I'll come back and say, don't be a children's slave.
Don't be a slave to your children.
You know, you're saying, yeah, the kids can have fun, they're on holiday, but then so are you. So you need to help them step up and take some pressure off.
Yes, and learn how to entertain themselves so that they're not looking to you for entertainment, especially for those of us that only have one child, and when that child was growing up, you were their primary playmate. So yes, making sure that you're not a slave to your kids. Oops. Oh, I know what I did when I hit the roller on the mouse. It goes backwards. I'm learning something today, team. Okay, the next one is meditation, right? Ever think about meditating, thinking about meditating? It really has some wicked mental health and physical health benefits when you do it consistently. And studies have shown that women benefit more from meditation practice than men do, which is interesting. But the interesting thing is that I love this picture because it's not what you typically think of when you think of meditation, right? We think of meditation as sitting on a pillow in a quiet place, putting some calm music on, lighting some candles. It doesn't have to be that. It's all about being quiet and calming all the chatter in your brain and just being present in your body for a few minutes, right? So that you're be still. So give it a go, right? And take a tech break. Take a tech break. We live on our phones, we live on our laptops, and I'm just as guilty of this as everybody else. So, you know, the phone is always nearby. Put it away in the drawer. It is actually quite freeing to not take the phone with me when I go out for a walk or when whatever. It's kind of nice. So yeah, take a tech break, leave it in the drawer for the day. If somebody really needs to get a hold of you, they will find another way to reach you, or they'll reach you through a friend or something. So yeah, take a break. Give your brain a break. All right. Nothing new, no rocket science here, but it's just doing it. And it's too funny because after the last session about the time management strategies last month, one of the folks I was speaking with said, you know, nothing in time management has really changed over the last X number of years. And I said, no, it hasn't. You just need to do what you know you need to do and be consistent.
As Nike said, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last thing we're going to blow past here today for you is the DISC report. We've talked about the opportunities you have to bring your team together next year, or to really solidify that connection in a good way. And some of that can be through great communication training based on the DISC model of behavioral styles. So the sale that we've been offering the past few months, right, sale on the DISC report is continuing through 31st December 2020. So we're going to carry it through the end of next month. So reach out and get yours sorted, and maybe think about sorting those for your team as well. So what you get with that, and several of you have taken this up, which is really exciting, is the 30-page extended DISC, which has your unique strengths, your unique challenges, taking those things into account, how to communicate better with those people who aren't just like you, do's and don'ts that you can share with your team when they communicate with you, right? And your power disc, which is a section of that report which basically focuses in on your sweet spot when it comes to your abilities as a leader. So there's great information in there. And what's the good point about people who might have similar profiles, Craig, or the same?
Doesn't mean they're the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got, for instance, there's one particular profile that is called a precisionist, and people who are in technical roles tend to be precisionists. And if you've got a team full of precisionists, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is exactly the same. So even though you might both be called precisionists, how that expresses in your communication and your interaction is different.
Yeah, and I gave the example back in the day when we did the talk about my son. We both got the same overall general name group, but we are so different. I'm more structured, he's more unstructured.
Yep.
He's, I guess you could say, more arty, and I'm less arty. So when I first saw it, I thought, oh, someone's done that wrong. But when you actually get into the detail,
because you know you're not the same. Yeah.
When you get into the detail, it's just the way that the mix is made up.
So what we're doing, as we mentioned earlier, there's a couple of you that early in the year are going to be doing a DISC workshop for your team, and what that looks like. This is the individual report, right? On sale for $89 plus GIST. So basically $100 all up for some great information. But what we're doing is we're doing DISCs on DISC reports for each team member. And some teams aren't doing the entire team, they're just doing the admin team. So whatever works for your practice, but we'll do a DISC for each team member. We'll provide a team summary or a team report to you as the team leader, which can be really helpful to know kind of where everybody sits. And for these folks who are doing this early in the year, we're running a workshop on site for them, which can probably go about 75, 90 minutes, something like that. That's really energetic, fun, it helps people understand their reports and talk about them and how they can use those reports to communicate better. So it's just going to be a fun time and a great way to kick off the year. So if you're interested in learning more about how to do that, shoot us an email. We're happy to tell you what that looks like.
Hi, Jen Myers here. I hope you enjoyed that video and it got you thinking about how to implement that topic into your practice. If you have any questions whatsoever, myself or Craig, we are more than happy to answer questions for you and help you understand how to apply what you've just watched and what you've just heard into your specific practice in your unique situation. So please click the button that says book a meeting, and we are more than happy to spend a few minutes with you going through the information and how you can apply it. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.